Welcome to Nightly. Peace of mind tonight. We step into a moonlit bamboo grove where silence dances with wind and breath becomes your only companion. The night is soft, the air faintly sweet with dew, and the tall bamboo stalks arch like green cathedral pillars under a sky so wide and dark it swallows up the noise of the day. You walk slowly now, your feet pressing into cool earth, your shoulders loosening with every step. A story waits here, old as starlight and just as quiet. There's something different about tonight. You can feel it in the way your heart doesn't race, in the way the moon rests in your chest, like a lantern. And just as you settle into the calm, a thought sneaks in. You probably won't survive this week if you don't rest soon. But not to worry. We'll get there together. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Drop it in the comments if you're awake enough. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You sit by a shallow stream at the edge of the forest, the kind that gurgles like it's humming a lullaby, meant only for you. Somewhere deeper in the grove, an old man moves slowly through rows of bamboo, his sandals brushing the ground like whispers. He is the bamboo cutter. And tonight, you become him. You lift your blade, not with haste, but with care. Each stalk you cut has a life, and somehow you feel it, a quiet pulse in the green, a tiny farewell in every slice. The forest doesn't resist. It doesn't weep. It simply yields, and in that yielding teaches. Your breath steadies. Inhale, exhale. The rhythm of your work begins to sync with something more profound, like the beat of the earth under your feet, or the moon's pull on the sea. Have you noticed how cutting bamboo slows your thoughts? Not with force, but by drawing your attention to something real, something here. Even now, as your blade gleams in silver light, a strange sensation arises. You're not cutting the bamboo. The bamboo is letting go of you. There's a Buddhist teaching that arises gently here, like mist over tea. All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. You think about the stalks you've cut, how none of them cling to their place, how they simply lean and fall and rest. And yet you, with all your thinking and striving, resist even the smallest discomfort. Why is that? Why do we grasp when the forest does not? You hear a fox calling far off, a soft yip carried on the wind. Your hand pauses, resting on the worn wood of your axe. Just then, a firefly floats past your face like a slow-moving star. You smile. These tiny moments, so easy to miss in the rush of living, are the true gold of the night. Long ago, the villagers said the bamboo grove was enchanted, not cursed, not haunted, enchanted. A place where people sometimes wandered in and found something they didn't know they'd lost. Their patience, their childlike wonder, their breath. You follow a narrow path that curves through the thickets, your steps slow and deliberate. Even the insects seem to pause for you. You come upon a clearing where the moon spills herself fully across the mossy floor. Here the bamboo grows tallest, stretching toward the stars, like monks in meditation. You notice one stalk thicker than the rest. Its color is strange, not the soft green of the others, but a pale silver, like moonlight woven into wood. You place your hand on it, warm, alive. You lift your blade with reverence, and as it slices cleanly through you, hear a sound not like wood breaking, but like something exhaling, like a secret being set free. The stalk falls open with a soft sigh. Inside a light, a soft glowing orb, no larger than a child's fist, pulsing gently like a heartbeat made of stars, and nestled around it, cloth folded, carefully, impossibly clean and warm, despite the damp forest air. You reach in. Your fingers tremble, not with fear, but with awe. It's a baby. She doesn't cry. She looks at you with eyes that are wide, ancient, and terribly calm, as if she knows something about you that you've yet to discover, as if she's been waiting. You cradle her, your arms forming a quiet cradle of bamboo and breath. The forest goes still. Not a bird, not a leaf moves. Then one breeze, just one. It passes through the clearing and lifts a single fallen leaf from the ground. You watch it float, spin, and land again, this time closer to you. And in that small gesture, you hear something. A question, not spoken aloud, but felt deep in your chest. What have you just uncovered within yourself? Perhaps the bamboo cutter did not simply find a child. Perhaps he found a part of himself that had long been forgotten. A stillness so deep it glows. A gentleness that has nothing to prove and everything to give. The baby now cradled in your arms does not fuss or flinch. She simply watches you, breathing, present, perfectly here. The stars overhead shimmer like candles carried in bowls of ink. Somewhere far off, the temple bell sounds midnight, a low rounded note that rolls across the forest, across your skin, across time. And as you rise with the child held close, you realize the night has changed. Not louder, not quieter, but more awake, as if the whole forest has paused in shared awareness, waiting to see what you'll do next. So you do the only thing that feels true. You take a step, and the path opens before you, like breath expanding in the chest. You walk deeper into the grove, carrying the child with a tenderness you didn't know your arms were capable of. Her weight is light, but her presence is vast, like holding a lantern that doesn't just illuminate the path ahead, but somehow softens the air itself. The bamboo rustles gently above you, as if whispering blessings or secrets between the leaves. Each stalk you pass leans just slightly, as if bowing not to you, perhaps, but to what you now carry. You return to your modest home at the edge of the forest, a place made of wood and time and quiet routines. There's no grand gate or polished tile, just a simple sliding door and a mat woven from reed and memory. You settle the baby onto a folded blanket, her face glowing with the kind of serenity you've only ever glimpsed in dreams. But something in you shifts. You sit back on your heels and look at your hands. These same hands that have chopped, carried, stacked, and mended now feel lighter. Not from less work, but from deeper meaning. Each action, each task of the day suddenly feels as if it had been waiting for this child to arrive, to reveal their hidden sanctity. Morning comes like a hush rather than an alarm. You wake with the sun pressing soft gold through the window. The child is still asleep, and the house feels full in a way you can't quite name. You eat rice and pickled radish, slowly chewing each bite like a prayer. Outside, the bamboo sways with the same rhythm you feel in your breath. You walk back into the forest, tools in hand, your muscles remembering their old work. But your heart is somewhere else. Now, quiet, curious, full. The first stalk you cut that day is crisp and green. It gives with the usual snap, but something about the sound stays with you. You raise the blade again, but this time you hesitate. You begin to notice something with each chop, a sense of loss. Not guilt, not sadness, just a thinning, as if each cut trims something within you. Ego, attachment, expectation. A memory surfaces, a saying passed down by one of the village elders, half jokingly shared, when someone got too full of themselves. Even the sharpest axe can't cut the ego until the hand that holds it learns to release. You chuckled when you first heard it, but now you feel the weight of that koan. You see your own reflection in the polished blade, not your face, but your habits, your assumptions, your constant inner monologue that chatters while you work, that whispers stories about who you are and how things should be. And in that moment, you stop. You set the blade down, not out of laziness or fatigue, but out of reverence. You place your hand on the next bamboo stalk and just breathe in, out, in again. And somehow, that moment feels more productive than any morning's work you've done in years. A flock of birds bursts upward from the nearby trees, startled by nothing visible. Just life moving. Just breath exhaling. Later that day, you return home and find the child watching dust float through a sunbeam. Not chasing it, not reaching, just observing. You sit next to her and mimic her gaze. The two of you, side by side, tracking the dance of particles in golden air. It feels sacred, like you are attending a ceremony where the only priest is silence. Word of the child spreads. Of course it does. Small villages have big ears. First come the curious, then the pious, then the opportunists. You smile politely. You answer questions with as little information as possible. The child continues to glow, not in a magical, theatrical way, but in the way a candle does when the rest of the house is dark. Soon, the village headman visits. He bows stiff and overly formal, asking about the child's origins. You tell him plainly about the bamboo, the light, the quiet. He listens, nodding, but you can feel his mind ticking, measuring, calculating. Power, mystery potential. His eyes linger on the child like a merchant sizing up a rare jewel, and still she just watches, calm, still, present. Later that night, you sit on your porch sipping tea. The stars are especially clear, each one like a drop of ink on a blank scroll. You think about the day, the visitors, the child, the blade, what is being cut truly. You remember a story told long ago by a traveling monk who had stayed with you during a storm. He spoke of a carpenter who once tried to carve the perfect statue of the Buddha. He searched for the finest wood, the right tools, the clearest vision. But no matter how he tried, every statue came out flawed. Frustrated, he threw down his chisel and gave up. Years passed. Then one day, while mending a simple stool, he saw a knot in the wood that looked like a laughing face. He laughed too genuinely, and for the first time, carved not with effort, but with joy. That statue, carved without ambition, became revered across the land. The monk had laughed while telling it. Sometimes the ego carves statues of wisdom, and sometimes wisdom just carves away the ego. You smile now, sipping the last of your tea. Your eyes drift to the child, fast asleep on her blanket. She dreams of something, perhaps something far away, or something deep within. And you wonder, can a single act, just one moment of quiet attention, cut through the noise of a lifetime? The wind moves through the bamboo, and even you close your eyes and let it brush across your face like a promise. The days unfold like the bamboo leaves, subtle light and seemingly identical, until you notice the quiet changes. The child grows quickly, though not in the usual way. Her body matures slowly, gently, but her eyes, they hold galaxies. You begin to understand that she is no ordinary being. She learns without being taught. She listens to the rain with the focus of a sage. She watches a bird's wing as if it were scripture. You give her a name, one that came to you in a dream. Tsukiko, child of the moon. And when you whisper it, the wind seems to pause, as if approving. One afternoon, you sit in the shade of the bamboo grove, watching her trace circles in the dirt with a small twig. Her movements are fluid, mindful, without any sense of trying. You sip your tea and smile, but she suddenly looks up and speaks for the first time since her arrival. Why do you cut the bamboo? The question feels like it lands in your chest with a soft thud. Simple, direct, but heavy with meaning. You set your teacup down slowly, as if giving the moment time to breathe, to make things, you say, for the village, for warmth, for use. She tilts her head. But do you need more things? You pause. The question isn't a challenge. It's a curiosity, like the wind asking the leaves why they fall. No, you admit, not always. But people ask, so I give. She nods, satisfied, and returns to her drawing. Her twig leaves a perfect spiral behind unbroken, precise, and calm. Later, as twilight settles in like a comfortable shawl, you recall a tale your mother once told you, back when your legs were still strong and your worries were few. It was about a radiant being, born from the moon, sent to Earth, not for punishment, but for learning. She was meant to live among humans, not to teach them, but to understand them. The story said she brought no books, no spells, no treasures. Just a soft light and an open gaze. But wherever she went, things shifted. Quarrels ceased. Children played more gently. Even the rice seemed to grow taller, not because she tried, but because she listened. Could Tsukiko be such a being, or perhaps the tale was never meant to describe her? But what is possible in all of us when we become deeply, reverently present? That night, as you sit by the open window, watching the moon rise, slow and full, you hear another voice echo in your memory. This one from the Buddha himself. A person is not called wise because they talk and talk again. But if they are peaceful, loving, and fearless, then they are truly called wise. Tsukiko doesn't talk often, but you're beginning to understand that wisdom lives in silence, and sometimes in the smallest gestures. The villagers continue to visit. Some come with reverence, some with greed veiled as concern. One merchant even offers you a pouch of gold for the child, his smile too sharp, his bow too deep. You refuse, of course, not with anger, but with that same smile you give to the morning mist, calm fading true. After he leaves, Tsukiko touches your hand and says softly, "He was afraid." You look at her, surprised. "Afraid of what?" "Of emptiness," she whispers, and the truth of it settles over you like fresh snow, soft, undeniable. The man's hunger wasn't for gold or miracles. It was for meaning. He was terrified of the quiet, so he tried to fill it with something he could hold. Aren't we all a little like that? You remember the early days of your work, the satisfaction of a full basket, the pride in your skill, but also the unspoken ache when the day ended and the house was quiet. You used to reach for tea or food or dessert or anything that made sound. But now with Tsukiko here, the silence feels full. One morning, you take her walking up a narrow trail behind the grove to a ledge where the whole valley unfolds below roofs like scattered shells, smoke rising in soft tendrils. She sits cross-legged beside you, hands in her lap. You ask, "What do you see?" She answers without turning, "Everything." But also nothing. You chuckle. "That's quite an answer." She smiles. "It's true. Everything moves and everything stills. So which one is it?" You look out over the valley and suddenly understand. The smoke moves. The roofs don't. But neither is wrong. The stillness and the movement belong to the same dance. That night, you dream of bamboo, but not the usual forest. It's growing from unusual places, your tea bowl the hearth, even from the pages of an old scroll. And in the center of your dream, one stalk glows silver. You reach for it, and when you touch it, you hear the sound of the moon singing. You wake with a start, but also with peace. Tsukiko is already awake, quietly folding your robe. She looks up and says only one thing. "It's time to stop cutting." You stare at her. "But how will we?" She interrupts gently. "You've already cut enough. Now you must learn to grow." You nod slowly. A question arises in you, like steam rising from tea. What if true growth begins when we no longer force it? You let the question hover unanswered. Outside, the bamboo waves gently, as if agreeing with everything and nothing at all. The news of the child spreads beyond the village. now like a soft wind carrying a hidden scent. Strangers begin to appear not in groups, but one by one, like dreams half remembered. A wandering monk, a scholar with tired eyes, a woman who never speaks, only watches. Each arrives, stays for a while, and then moves on. They never ask for anything. They seem drawn to the stillness, as if your home has become a bell that only rings in silence. And still, Tsukiko says little. She tends the garden. She folds your robes. She watches the sunset as if it were an old friend arriving right on time. Dawn might, but the villagers grow louder, curious, unsettled. She doesn't age, they murmur. She doesn't eat like a child, doesn't sleep like one either. She must be divine or cursed. Maybe she's here to bless us. Maybe she's here to test us. You hear it all. You smile when you must. You bow when you need to. But in the quiet hours, you sit with the weight of their words like stones in your lap. One morning, while sweeping the front path, a boy throws a pebble toward Tsukiko. It lands near her feet. He laughs nervously. His friends whisper. She looks at the stone for a long time. Then she picks it up and gently places it on a large, flat rock, as if returning it home. She says nothing. That evening, you ask her, "Did the stone upset you?" "No," she replies. "Then why did you move it?" "So it wouldn't feel alone." You blink, then laugh softly. Not at her, but at your own surprise. She has a way of unwrapping even a moment of cruelty and finding something gentle inside, like peeling a bitter fruit to discover sweetness at the core. There's a teaching in the Dhammapada that floats to your mind. Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule. You used to think that was poetic. Now you begin to see it as practical, sharp, useful, like bamboo hollow, flexible and stronger than steel. That night, a new rumor spreads. A wealthy official from the capital is said to be coming. His men passed through a nearby village, asking about a glowing girl, a quiet house, and a bamboo grove. You don't panic, but you feel something stir. You begin to notice how even the trees seem to listen more closely. The birds sing quieter. Tsukiko spends more time near the edge of the grove, staring at the moon, as if remembering something she's forgotten. One afternoon, she turns to you suddenly. "I want to visit the market." You blink. The market. Why? She smiles. To see what people chase. And so you go. Together. The village market is noisy, filled with smells, grilled fish, incense, ripe fruit, and sounds, barking dogs, shouting merchants, clinking coins. You haven't brought her here before. You weren't sure if she would want to or need to. She walks slowly, like someone tasting music, She pauses at each stall, not to buy, but to observe. One vendor waves a fan to drive flies away, muttering curses. A child whines over a toy. An old woman haggles fiercely over 2 cucumbers. Tsukiko kneels beside a flower seller. She doesn't touch the blossoms, just breathes them in to one by one. The seller watches her with wary eyes, then suddenly softens. She smells them like they're secrets, the woman says quietly to you. You smile. Maybe they are. On the walk back, Tsukiko says, everyone seems to be searching for what you ask, for something they already have. You don't respond. The breeze answers for you, lifting a few leaves into the path, spinning them in slow spirals. That night, you both sit quietly by the fire. She watches the flames. You watch her. She says, when the wind blows through bamboo, the bamboo doesn't hold on. It sways. It bends. And then it stills. You ask, are you the wind or the bamboo? She doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. You reflect on an old parable, once told by a blind teacher who had wandered into your village many seasons ago. He described a monk who sought enlightenment by meditating atop a mountain for 7 years. When the monk finally descended, full of pride and silence, a child threw a handful of dust in his face. The monk flinched. Anger rose in him. He realized then, 7 years on a mountaintop, and still his mind could be stirred by a single grain. The teacher had smiled and said, you are not enlightened. If your peace depends on the absence of dust, that memory lingers now as you realize your village is full of dust. Opinions, fears, pebbles. But Tsukiko doesn't resist them. She doesn't even brush them away. She watches. She accepts. She sets them down gently. Can you do the same? Is peace something you protect or something you allow? You don't need to decide now. The moon doesn't hurry, and neither should you. You lie down that night, listening to the wind through the bamboo. Each stalk sings a slightly different note, but together they form a single melody, low, soft, ancient, and somewhere, just beyond sleep, you hear Tsukiko whisper, perhaps only in your mind. It's not about stopping the world. It's about sitting still while it moves. Dawn seeps in gently through the rice paper walls, as if shy about waking you. The light is soft and milky, without edges, like it's been filtered through clouds and dreams. You sit up slowly, your joints humming their usual morning tune. But your breath feels different today, deeper, wider. Tsukiko is already outside, seated in the grove with her legs folded beneath her, like water finds its own level. She doesn't notice your footsteps, or maybe she does, but she doesn't move. You pause behind her, not wishing to disturb the silence, because somehow This stillness feels like something sacred, something earned. You join her quietly, lowering yourself to the cool earth, your knees sighing, your back curving into the shape of presence. Together, you sit. Just that. No chant, no bell, no need. And the grove listens with you. Bamboo leans slightly in the morning breeze. Birds trill from unseen branches. Somewhere nearby, a drop of water lands from leaf to leaf with that soft plip that only early hours ever hear. You notice your breath again. In, out. Not just in your chest, but in the world. The trees inhale. The sky exhales. The space between the sounds is more vibrant than the sounds themselves. You recall a teaching once murmured by an elderly nun who stopped at your home on her way to the Eastern Shrine. She had sat by your hearth, eyes nearly closed, her hand cradling a warm bowl of barley tea. She said, "Meditation is not escaping the world. It's loving it so much that you stop trying to control it." You didn't understand it then, but now, watching Tsukiko's spine rise and fall like a slow tide, you feel the edges of that truth. You're not trying to do anything, yet something is happening. A soft unraveling, a loosening, like knots being untied without fingers. Eventually, Tsukiko opens her eyes. She doesn't speak. Instead, she places a single finger to her lips, not as a warning, but as a gift. This moment does not need words. You remain there until your legs begin to ache, and your mind tries to coax you back into motion with promises of tea, of chores, of the day's duties. But you don't move right away. You let that restlessness stretch itself and fade like a cat yawning before curling back into stillness. Later, over breakfast, warm rice and pickled radish. Again, Tsukiko finally speaks. The bamboo sways even when no one watches. You nod. Yes, I suppose it does. She looks up from her bowl. So why do we only notice what we see? You don't answer right away. Instead, you look at the steam rising from the rice. Each curl vanishes into the air unnoticed unless you're looking for it. Maybe most of life is like that, invisible, essential, uncelebrated, the same way breath holds the body, but asks for no thanks. That evening, Tsukiko walks deeper into the grove than usual. You follow, not because she needs protection, but because you feel drawn. Something about the air has changed. There's a quiet anticipation, like the hush before a bell rings. She stops in a clearing, one you've never noticed before, though you've lived here for years. The bamboo here is older, thicker, and there, resting on a flat stone, is a small, worn zafu, a round meditation cushion faded with age, but untouched by rain, as if someone left it for this moment. Tsukiko sits on it without hesitation. You settle nearby, using a folded robe. The silence deepens. The moon is not yet risen, but the sky is beginning to soften. Tsukiko speaks. "Sit with the trees," she says. Not to learn from them, just to remember what you forgot. And with that, she closes her eyes. You follow. The stillness this time is different, more vast. Not empty, but whole, complete. You begin to feel less like a body, more like breath. Less like a thought, more like the space between them. Even the crickets seem to pause for a moment, and then you feel it, the bamboo, and your spine in rhythm. The earth and your breath in sync. The sky and your silence intertwined. A phrase rises like incense smoke from somewhere within. Is stillness a place you go to, or something you become? You let the question stay. You let everything stay. Time slips away. You don't know if minutes or hours have passed. But eventually, Tsukiko opens her eyes and smiles. "There you are," she says, as if you had just arrived. You smile back a little, confused. "I never left you," reply, but her expression deepens. "No, but now you've arrived." The moon crests the treetops, then round and full and patient. It doesn't rush to light the world. It simply is. A reminder that presence doesn't require effort. You walk home without speaking. Even the path seems smoother. That night, as you drift into sleep, you feel different. Not better, not worse. Just closer to what you can't say. Maybe to yourself, maybe to the bamboo, maybe there's no difference. Morning finds you slowly now. Not in a rush, not startled by roosters or chores or the anxiety of a half-remembered task. It simply arrives the way tea cools, gradually, then all at once. You rise without urgency, with the soft dignity of someone whose day doesn't need conquering. Outside, dew clings to the tips of grass like tiny offerings, each droplet trembling in the rising sun. Tsukiko is boiling water when you join her. She does it with such calm precision. You feel like you've interrupted a ritual just by standing near. You bow slightly in apology. She smiles. Today, she says nothing until the tea is poured and the steam curls upward in thin threads of warmth. The silence between you is not awkward. It's fertile, like tilled soil before a seed. Then she gestures to a small clay teacup and says, "This cup is already full." You glance down. The cup is half empty. She lifts it, tilts it slightly, and water spills over the edge. "It can't hold more," she says. You nod, waiting. She adds, like the mind that already knows everything. And there it is, a gentle teaching, hidden in tea steam and pottery. You sip your tea, and the warmth touches your belly before it even reaches your throat. Your mind slows. The metaphor ripples out like ink in water. How often have you tried to pour wisdom into a cup that's already brimming with opinions? How many days have you rushed through, full of conclusions, missing the subtle tastes of the present? You remember a story, a folk tale told by an old traveling calligrapher. A wealthy man curious about Zen invited a master monk to tea. He kept talking as the tea was poured, boasting of his knowledge, his practices, his insights. The monk kept pouring. The tea rose to the brim. Then it spilled over. The man shouted, "It's full." "You're spilling it," the monk smiled and said. "Exactly." You chuckle to yourself, now that same lesson arriving again uninvited, but right on time. Tsukiko pours more tea for you. Without asking, her eyes soft. She places a second cup in front of herself, but doesn't drink. Instead, she closes her eyes and places her hands over the steam. "Smell the space," she says. "You do." The scent is grassy light with a sweetness that reminds you of bamboo shoots and rain. You exhale. There is nothing to fix, nothing to improve. Just this. Later that day, as the sun arcs toward its golden descent, a visitor arrives. Not a stranger this time, but a woman in worn robes, her head shaven, her walking stick carved with tiny lotus patterns. She bows at your gate and introduces herself with no name, only a nod. "I heard of the child," she says, "and came to share a moment." You offer tea. She accepts. You notice her gaze clear, but not piercing. Strong, but without sharpness. Like moonlight, reflected on still water. She asks nothing of Tsukiko. Instead, she sets down her stick and sits cross-legged on the porch. The silence is comfortable. She eventually speaks, not to the child, but to you. "When I was a novice," she says, "my teacher asked me to sweep the garden every morning. I did it perfectly. Not a leaf remained. But one day he came, looked at my clean path, and frowned." You lean in. He took the branch of a tree and shook it. Leaves scattered across the path. He smiled and said, "Now it's complete." You feel the story nest itself inside you, somewhere just below the ribs. Perfection, you realize, is often too tidy to be alive. Tsukiko nods slowly, as if she's always known. She picks up a handful of leaves and lets them fall over your porch. Then she laughs, a quiet silver sound that doesn't startle the birds, only joins their song. The nun, satisfied, bows once more. "I've learned what I needed," she says. "Not from you, but from the wind." You watch her walk away, her back straight. Despite the years, her steps unhurried. As she disappears beyond the grove, Tsukiko turns to you. Some people walk in, and your cup overflows. Others leave, and you find it full. You sit with that for a while. As twilight dips the world into indigo and gold, you light a lantern and place it near the door, not to invite guests, but to welcome whatever arises. Even shadows deserve light. That night, you dream of a cup sitting on a stone near a stream. It fills slowly, not from being poured into, but from mist rising off the water, drop by gentle drop. You wake with the echo of a question. Can your cup be full without being filled? There's no answer. Not yet. But as the sun rises and the breeze carries the scent of fresh bamboo, you begin to suspect that emptiness isn't empty at all. It's just the space that makes the tea worth sipping. The next morning begins with bird song as gentle as breath, echoing through the trees like bells rung by wind. You stretch your arms over your head and notice a tightness in your shoulders, not from labor, but from holding on to thoughts while you slept. It's strange how even in dreams, the mind clutches what it can't control. Outside, Tsukiko is arranging stones along the garden's edge. They aren't random. They follow a silent rhythm. Big, small, then flat. A pattern only she sees. You watch her a moment before asking, "Why stones?" Today, she replies without pausing. They stay where they're placed until it's time to move. Later, word reaches your village. A prince from the southern province has heard of the glowing girl and wishes to meet her. Wishes, of course, is a polite veil. He expects to meet her. The villagers buzz with anticipation. They polish their doorways, sweep paths that haven't seen a broom in months. They hope for favor, for attention, for coin. You feel something shift in your chest. Not fear, not pride. Something older than that. A kind of ripple, like when a pond is touched by a bird's wing. A week later, the prince arrives. He wears gold-threaded silk that shimmers even in the shade. His horse is tall and clean, its saddle stitched with the image of a roaring lion. But what you notice most is his eyes, restless, moving too quickly to actually see. He speaks formally, though his voice is wrapped in practiced ease. "I've heard of your ward," he says, glancing at Tsukiko. "They say she glows, that she is divine." You smile gently. She's quiet. He chuckles. So are the mountains. And yet they hold power. Tsukiko bows to him, just enough to show respect, but not to bend. He watches her, like one would a chessboard studying moves before making them. "I've brought gifts," he says. "Silk, silver, rare incense from across the sea." She looks at the pile of treasures laid before her, then to you, then to the prince. They're beautiful, she says. He smiles, pleased. But I have no use for them. His smile wavers. You place a hand over your chest and bow, offering apology on her behalf. But Tsukiko gently lifts your hand away. He is generous, she says. But generosity is not a trade. The prince stiffens slightly. I'm not here to trade, only to witness. Tsukiko meets his gaze calmly. Then be still. He laughs, but there's tension beneath it. Stillness is not a quality of rulers. Then perhaps, she says, you do not yet rule. The courtyard goes very quiet. No insult, no anger. Just a seed planted gently. The prince straightens. May I ask a question of her? You nod, uncertain. He kneels, a gesture so awkward it creaks. Why do you not seek power? If you are truly of celestial origin. Tsukiko looks at him for a long time, her face neither sullen nor stern. Because power seeks me, she says. But I do not follow those who chase it. He lowers his eyes then, for the first time, truly quiet. You remember a tale once told by a retired soldier who had traded his sword for a prayer bead necklace. He had spoken of a wise woman he met in his travels, who told him, the strongest tree is not the tallest, but the one that bends when the wind demands. Even storms bow to what does not resist. You understood it as metaphor once. Now you see it lived. After some time, the prince stands. He offers no further challenge, only a single question to you before he leaves. How did you find her? You answer simply. She was inside a bamboo stalk. I didn't find her. She arrived. He nods. As he mounts his horse, he looks back once, not at Tsukiko, but at the forest. You wonder if he'll remember her words, or if they'll lie dormant in him, like seeds beneath frost. That night, Tsukiko tends to her stones again. She moves one slightly. You say nothing, but she speaks anyway. Some people come like wind, she says, loud, fast everywhere, but they cannot stay. And others, you ask, she smiles, like mountains, silent. And already here, you sit beside her and breathe with her. In the stillness, you feel the echo of the prince's presence fade like footsteps on sand. All that remains is breath, bamboo, and a question resting gently in your chest. Is influence the ability to change others, or the strength to remain unchanged? You have no answer, only tea and nightfall, and the soft rhythm of wind in trees. And maybe that's enough. The days settle again, like leaves on water, calm and circular. After the prince's visit, the village quiets, unsure whether to celebrate or be afraid. Some say you were rude to royalty. Others say the child is more divine than ever. But gossip, like wind, loses force if you simply let it pass through. You return to the grove with your old tools, more out of habit than need. But when your hand reaches for the you pause. The blade feels foreign now, like picking up a story you've outgrown. You set it back down gently, like placing a cup after the last sip. You walk instead. You let your fingers graze the bamboo as you pass. Each stalk feels cool, smooth, forgiving. The kind of presence that doesn't ask anything of you. You wonder, not for the first time, whether the real work of the cutter was never cutting, but learning when not to. Tsukiko walks with you in silence. Her steps are light, but grounded, like someone who understands gravity, but chooses not to argue with it. You both arrive at a fallen stalk, already cut, perhaps, by wind or age. It rests across the path. You expect her to step over it. Instead, she kneels. She places her palm flat on its surface. This one gave enough. You kneel, too unsure what to do. It feels like a ceremony, but there are no words, only presence. A bow of the head, a breath. Later, she tells you something that lingers all day, like a song half heard. To cut without cutting, she says, is the deepest way. You tilt your head. Is that even possible? She nods without explaining. That evening, you recall an old Zen tale of a swordsman who became a monk. He asked a teacher how to truly master his blade. The teacher handed him a broom and said, "Sweep until you forget how to swing." Years passed. The monk swept. He cooked. He tended to the sick. One day, bandits came. The monk stood between them and the villagers. Empty hands, calm eyes. They saw something in him, something unshakable, and fled. The villagers asked how he frightened them off. He simply said, "I forgot I ever knew how to harm." You smile, remembering it. That night, Tsukiko surprises you. She picks up the axe you left by the door and brings it to the grove. You follow uncertain. She finds a young, thin bamboo stalk leaning dangerously across the path, close to breaking under its own weight. She studies it for a long time. Then, without haste, she cuts it with one clean stroke. The sound is soft, final, respectful. She sets the blade down. Not all cutting is harm, she says, but every cut must come from stillness. You sit beside her in the clearing. She runs her fingers over the fresh stump and says, "Cutting from desire wounds. Cutting from presence heals." The wind picks up, gently swaying the surrounding stalks. You let the words settle in you, deeper than understanding. Something reshapes in your chest, not with tension, but with space. You look at your hands, the same ones that once felled countless stalks. They feel different now, not useless, but changed. Like a bell, no longer needs ringing to echo. That night, Tsukiko brings you a bowl of water. She sets it in front of you, clear and still. "Look," she says, "you see your reflection. But not just your face. You see the lines of age, the softness around the eyes, a kindness that wasn't there before, a deep quiet. Then she places one finger gently into the water. The ripples move outward, changing the image. This is what happens when you act without stillness, she says. Then she waits. When the water calms again, your face returns. But it's different, softer. Now, she whispers, cut the air. You laugh. What? Try. You lift your hand and make a slicing motion. The air sways slightly. Nothing breaks. Nothing bleeds. And yet, something moves. You feel it. You begin to understand. To cut without cutting means to move in the world without leaving harm behind. To shift things by presence alone. To act from such stillness that even your doing carries the flavor of non-doing. Is it possible to live a life that leaves no scar behind? The question enters your breath, your bones, your blood. The moon rises again, lazy and full. You rest under it, hands on your chest, listening to the forest breathe. No stalk falls, no blade swings, and yet everything continues growing, shifting, dancing gently through the dark. The morning air is thick with mist, curling around your ankles like a patient cat. You step out onto the porch and stretch your arms, feeling the air kiss your skin, cool and welcoming. The scent of dew on bamboo is stronger today, earthy, clean, and somehow sacred. Tsukiko is already in the grove, standing so still that you almost miss her among the trees. She's facing a narrow trail that winds toward a distant hermitage, a path rarely taken, one that disappears into the mountains. You watch her for a moment before approaching. She turns to you and says, "We have a visit to make. No explanation, no urgency." You simply nod. You pack light, some dried rice, a flask of water, and a cloth to sit on. Tsukiko carries nothing but her presence. The path is gentle at first, winding through low brush and wide leaves that catch droplets of last night's rain. The earth beneath your sandals is soft but firm, like walking on memory. You don't speak much. The rhythm of footsteps and breath is enough. A few hours pass before you reach the hermitage. It's barely more than a hut, leaning slightly to one side, like it's listening to the forest. Smoke curls from a hole in the roof. A wind chime made of shells and bone tinks softly in the breeze. A man stands at the door, blind eyes, framed by deep lines, his gray hair pulled back in a simple knot. He holds a stick, but you sense he doesn't need it. He smiles before either of you speak. "I've been expecting you," he says, voice like river stones. You bow deeply. Tsukiko simply nods. Inside the hut is dim and warm. The air carries the scent of sandalwood and old paper. Shelves made of branches line the walls, filled with objects you can't quite identify. Bundles of herbs, folded cloth, a cracked teapot. The blind man motions for you to sit. You've come far, he says. Not in distance, but in silence. Tsukiko sits like a shadow folded perfectly unmoving. The man smiles, as if he sees something invisible between you. He turns toward you. Do you know why the eyes close during meditation? You consider this, then shake your head, so the inner seeing can begin, he says. He lifts a worn bell from a shelf and rings it once. The sound is low and round, a vibration, more than a tone. It seems to enter through your skin. Close your eyes, he instructs. You obey. Now listen, not for sound, but for silence. Let the world fade, but not disappear. You breathe. The room falls away. Even the scent of sandalwood seems to dissolve. There is no story here, no memory, no need to understand. Just breath and space. Time passes without measure. When you open your eyes, the old man is looking directly at you. Though his pupils are clouded white, you carry noise in your chest, he says gently. But it is not yours. It was gifted to you by those who could not hold their own. The words land softly like ash. You feel seen, but not judged. Tsukiko speaks for the first time since arriving. He has learned to cut without cutting. The old man smiles. Good. Then it is time to learn to speak without sound. You tilt your head. How? He turns to a wall and points, though how he sees it, you don't know. There hangs a small scroll, yellowed with age, bearing a single character. Sin, heart-mind, he says. They are not separate. You approach it. Something about the brushstroke trembles. Not from flaw, but from presence. It feels like the moment before a storm, or the second before a tear falls. I made that, the man says, after I lost my sight. You look at him, startled. How? With the help of silence and the bamboo. He lifts a piece of bamboo from beside his mat. Its surface is smooth, polished by time. I ran my fingers along the grain. I listened. Not with ears, not with thought, with the heart-mind. Then I let the brush move as it wished. You try to imagine it, but the image refuses to be logical. Then you understand. It wasn't about making sense. It was about making space before you leave. The old man gives you something wrapped in cloth, a simple stone with a hole in the center. When you speak from stillness, he says, you don't need many words. Even a stone can say enough. The hike home is quiet. Tsukiko doesn't comment on the visit. She walks ahead of you, stepping lightly over roots and fallen leaves. Her presence feels different, wider maybe. Or perhaps it's you who has changed. That night, you place the stone on your altar. You don't ask what it means. You simply sit. The wind moves through the grove like breath through an open mouth. The bamboo hums its ancient song, And you wonder, can the deepest teachings be felt without being spoken? You close your eyes and let the question become an answer all its own. The next morning breaks with a soft drizzle, mist turning into rain, but never quite arriving with force. You sit on the porch wrapped in an old shawl, watching droplets cling to the bamboo leaves. They fall one by one, like thoughts slipping gently from your mind. Tsukiko sits beside you, her knees tucked up, chin resting on them. She hums softly, a tune you don't recognize, but it feels familiar, like something you might have heard long ago in a half-remembered dream. Without turning, she says, "There's a trial coming." You glance at her. Trial? She nods. Not a punishment, just a test. You wait, but it won't come like thunder, she adds. It'll come with soft footsteps and a kind face. The rain pauses as if listening. Later that day, a traveler arrives. He wears simple clothes, a clean tunic, a walking stick, polished smooth by years of use. His eyes are gentle, his voice warm. He bows deeply, and his tone is humble. "I heard of your grove," he says, "and the child who walks like the moon." You nod. He asks if he may stay the night. You agree. He seems kind. He helps you gather firewood. He praises the way Tsukiko lays stones in the garden. He tells stories of distant lands of famine and feast of kings who weep in secret, and monks who laugh in silence. You want to like him, but Tsukiko watches him with still eyes. No judgment, no fear, just watchfulness. That night, around the fire, he asks if she might bless him. Bless you, how she asks. Help me see, he says. I've wandered long and grown weary. I want to see the truth. She studies him for a moment. Then she picks up a paper lantern, places a small candle inside, and lights it. The glow is soft, gentle golden. She hands it to him. "This is your blessing," she says. He looks confused. "It's beautiful, but what does it mean?" She smiles. "Walk with it, just until the candle burns out. Do not speak. Do not stop. Just walk." He hesitates, then bows. "Thank you." He walks into the grove, lantern held steady. You and Tsukiko sit and wait. Minutes pass. Maybe more. Then the lantern returns. Without him. Carried not by a hand, but by the wind. It floats, gently flickering low, and comes to rest by Tsukiko's feet. The traveler follows. His expression changed. Not sad, not afraid, but humbled. "I walked," he says, kneeling. "At first, I thought of my journey, my troubles. Then I watched the flame. I saw how it danced, how it bent, how it did not complain when the wind shook it." He looks up at her. "It burned until the very end, quietly, fully. Tsukiko nods. And so must we. You realize then this was the trial. Not for him, for you. A kindness arrives, dressed in humility, and your mind wanted to trust it, even serve it. But Tsukiko waited, watched. She saw beyond his words to the desire beneath. He did not come to harm, but he came with a need that could easily have become hunger. You think of a teaching from the Buddha as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame. The traveler, to his credit, understands now. He bows to you, to Tsukiko, to the lantern. Then he leaves, not with riches, but with something quieter. That evening, Tsukiko places the lantern by your bedside. You watch it flicker until the wax pools and the wick surrenders. After it goes dark, she says, "Sometimes the test is not whether you can give light, but whether you can keep yours lit when others ask for it." You nod the truth, landing in your chest, like a leaf drifting into still water. You lie down. The shadows in the room feel softer, not because they're smaller, but because you no longer fear them. And before sleep takes you, a question stirs gently in your mind. How often do we give away our light, thinking it kindness, without asking whether the other has learned to carry their own? You exhale. The rain begins again, slow and rhythmic, tapping on the roof like a calm, steady drum. You drift into sleep with the memory of the lantern's glow still warm in your chest. You wake before the sun. The world is still wrapped in shades of charcoal and blue. No bird sings yet. No light peeks over the ridges. It's the kind of silence that feels deeper than quiet. It's a pause that holds space for something sacred to emerge. Tsukiko is already at the edge of the grove, her face tilted upward, eyes closed. She breathes as though she were part of the forest, neither visitor nor master, just another piece of sky rooted in earth. She opens her eyes as you approach, nods once, and begins walking. You follow. This time, the path winds higher than usual. Not into danger, but into solitude. The bamboo thins as you ascend, replaced gradually by stones, moss, and low shrubs. Birds begin to stir in the canopy below. But up here, the world still feels asleep. The climb is long but gentle. Your legs ache, but there's peace in the ache, like your body is waking up along with the day. Eventually, you reach a small plateau. It opens like a breath between the trees. Here the air feels lighter, not because of altitude, but because of presence. There's a stillness here that doesn't need to be earned. It just is. Tsukiko sits on a wide, flat stone that juts slightly toward the sky. She closes her eyes again, and without being told, you do the same. At first, there's only breath, then a subtle shift. You feel the mountain, not just under you, but around you, inside you, not as an object, not as a thing, but as a blence that holds everything without clinging to anything. Tsukiko speaks softly, but her voice carries without effort. This is the mountain of stillness, she says. It rises when you do not climb. You open your eyes. Then why did we walk all this way? She smiles. Because sometimes the body must move so the mind can sit. You laugh gently, the kind of laugh that doesn't disturb. The quiet only joins it. You remember a story, an old parable passed through many tongues about a monk who spent 10 years in retreat, searching for stillness. He sat unmoved for days. When he emerged, a student asked, "What did you find in the silence?" The monk replied, "I found that the mountain had always been still. It was I who trembled. Here now on this ridge, with wind brushing your face and the sky yawning above you, understand, stillness is not about stopping. It's about ceasing the need to push. You let out a breath. The breeze carries it away. You and Tsukiko sit for a long time. The sun rises slowly, painting the rocks in soft gold. The valley below lights up a patchwork of mist roofs and rice fields. You spot your home, so small from here, it looks like a thought. All the worries, all the questions, shrunk to a speck. Tsukiko says, climbing makes the world smaller. But not because it moves, because you do. You nod. How do I bring the mountain back down with me? You don't, she says. You carry its shape in your breath. And then she does something unexpected. She stands, reaches into her robe, and pulls out a folded piece of cloth. She unwraps it to reveal a small, round mirror, no larger than your palm. She holds it up to the sky. It catches the light, bending it, reflecting it. Look, she says, you see yourself in it. But not quite. The image shimmers. The contours of your face soften. You appear weightless. It shows not your form, she says, but your state. You gaze deeper. You see peace. Not the kind you perform, but the kind that watches quietly from behind your eyes. Then she turns the mirror toward the mountain. It reflects nothing, just light. Stillness, she whispers, is not what you see. It's what sees you. You sit again this time, not in meditation, but in simple wonder. The wind picks up, tugging gently at your sleeves. A hawk cries in the distance. You let the silence expand again, and within it, a question unfurls like a fern in early morning light. Can you be still in the middle of motion, like the mountain beneath a dancing sky? The journey down feels shorter, not because the path has changed, but because you have. You walk more slowly, not to delay, but to feel each step land fully. The soil, the stone, the curve of the trail. When you return to the grove, the bamboo greets you with soft rustles. You place a hand on one stalk, feeling its warmth, its memory. You don't need to speak of the mountain. You brought it back with you, in your spine, in your breath, in the hush between your thoughts. That night, as stars press into the sky like pinholes in a curtain, you lie on your back and close your eyes, not to sleep, but to listen. And there, beneath your ribs, you hear it again, that quiet, anchored stillness, a mountain unmoved. A thick fog rolls in overnight, blanketing the grove in layers of cottony white. Morning arrives, muffled, soft-footed, like a secret slipping between dreams. You rise, slowly, rubbing the sleep from your eyes, and step outside to find the world transformed. The bamboo is barely visible, each stalk appearing like a ghost before fading again into the mist. You walk slowly, carefully, trusting your feet more than your sight. The fog doesn't frighten you. It invites you, as though the world is reminding you you don't always need to see to know where to go. Tsukiko appears beside you without a sound. Her robes are damp from the air, and her hands are cupped around something delicate, glowing faintly. Come, she says simply. She leads you into the grove, deeper than usual, to a space you've rarely entered. It feels older here. The ground is darker, the silence heavier. She stops beneath an ancient tree, gnarled and hollowed near the base. The fog curls around its roots like fingers in meditation. Tsukiko kneels. This is where it began, she says. You sit beside her. The bamboo, she shakes her head. The lesson, she lifts her cupped hands. Inside is a small, pale lotus, its petals barely open. Rainwater glistens on its surface like tears. This bloomed after the fire, she says. You blink. What fire? She looks at you, eyes steady. The fire that will come. The words settle like embers in your chest. Strange, slow quiet. You want to ask more, but you don't. Not yet. Instead, you remember. Years ago, before Tsukiko came, a lightning storm passed over the village. A fire caught in the western grove. It spread fast, wild. You remember the smoke, the shouts, the hurried buckets of water passed hand to hand. You remember standing in the ashes the next day, feeling the strange, hollow guilt of having survived what others didn't. And yet, within a week, the first green shoot appeared. You didn't notice it at the time, but you remember now. Lotus in the ashes, Tsukiko says, as if reading your memory. That is the way of things. You think of the Buddha's words. Just as a lotus grows from mud, so too does the awakened heart arise from the fires of suffering. It's not a lesson about endurance. It's a lesson about transformation. The fog begins to lift slowly as the sun rises behind it. You see the outlines of the grove return softer than usual, like a painting not yet finished yet. And then, far off, there's shouting. Smoke. You and Tsukiko rise without urgency. Though your heart races, you rush toward the village. One of the storage huts has caught fire. No one knows how. Perhaps a lantern tipped. perhaps lightning, perhaps nothing at all. The flames are high, licking at the sky. People yell, tossing water, flapping blankets, forming lines. You leap in, grabbing buckets, passing them hand to hand. Tsukiko stands at a distance, not cold, not afraid. Still, when it's done, when the fire hisses out in a long final sigh, the hut is gone. The ground is black. Charred wood crackles beneath your feet, and silence follows. You sit on a rock, panting, covered in soot. The villagers murmur. Some cry, some curse. Tsukiko walks through the smoke. She kneels in the ashes and places the lotus there, the same one from her hands earlier. The petals have begun to open. A child watches. Then another. One kneels beside her, then a second. Without a word, the villagers begin to clear the debris. Not because someone told them to, but because it is time. You remember another tale. A farmer whose barn burned down. Everyone offered pity, but he simply said, "Now I can see the moon." At the time, you thought it foolish. Now you see its truth. Back at home, Tsukiko washes her hands in silence. You brew tea with shaky hands. Your body is tired, but your spirit feels oddly light. She speaks at last. You cannot stop fire from coming, she says. But you can choose what rises from the ash. You nod, staring at the steam curling from the cup. She adds, ash is not an end. It's a beginning in disguise. You sip slowly, and the warmth fills more than your belly. It fills a space inside you that's long been waiting. You look out the window at the village. People are working, moving, rebuilding. And something within you whispers, when things fall apart, what do you make with what remains? The fog has cleared, but you don't miss it. You carry it with you now, a softness, a mystery, a piece made from flame and stillness side by side. That night, as you lie down, your dreams are quiet. Not because nothing stirs, but because everything within them knows how to rise again. The days after the fire pass like slow-moving clouds, full of quiet effort and unexpected grace. The village rebuilds, not with complaint, but with calm determination. Doors are rehung, roofs are patched, children help carry baskets. There's less talk now, but more presence in every gesture. And Tsukiko, she seems even more still than before, if that's possible. She walks with you through the charred remains of the old hut, her fingers brushing the blackened bamboo that now leans like tired elders. Yet nothing about her is sad. You crouch near a patch of scorched earth where a single green shoot is pushing through. She kneels beside you. Life forgets how to stop, she says softly. You feel that in your bones. Later that afternoon, as the sky turns to liquid gold, Tsukiko joins the village children near the riverbank. They build small boats from leaves and twigs, placing candles in their centers. One by one, they light them and send them drifting downstream. Tsukiko lights hers last, but instead of placing it in the river, she turns to you and says, "I have a question." You pause. Of course, her eyes narrow slightly, but not with judgment, with focus. If everything changes, she asks, what remains? The candle flickers. Between you, a single fragile flame in the wind. It's not a riddle. It's not a game. It's a question that lands in your chest and settles. You open your mouth, then close it. What does remain? Not your name, not your house, not even your memories, which already fray at the edges. You think of your tools, now rusting, your stories half told, your youth long vanished like breath on a mirror. Tsukiko watches. You speak quietly, love. She tilts her head. Awareness. She nods. Slowly. But then, and what sees even awareness? You blink. Is there such a thing? She smiles. The one who asks. The little boat in her hands glows brighter now, though the candle is no larger. She sets it gently on the river. It floats for a moment, then catches the current and drifts away, the flame dancing with each ripple. You watch it until it becomes a dot, then disappears. You think of a story you once heard from a wandering nun. She spoke of a young novice who asked her teacher, "Where is the soul kept?" The teacher pointed to a bowl of water. When you drink, where does the moon go? You didn't understand the story at the time. You thought it was a puzzle. Now you wonder if it was simply the truth dressed in poetry. Later, at the fire that night, Tsukiko speaks again. "I will not stay forever." The air shifts. You stir the embers with a stick, watching sparks leap like startled fireflies. "Are you leaving soon?" you ask. She doesn't answer that. Instead, she asks, "Are you ready to stay?" You don't know what she means. But something deep in you trembles, not in fear, but in recognition. She rises and walks into the grove, disappearing among the tall stalks. You sit by the fire, watching the stars emerge one by one. The sky doesn't hurry. Neither do you. You turn her question over, like a smooth stone in your hands. What remains when everything else is gone? That night, your dream is simple. You sit on a cushion in the middle of the bamboo forest. The trees are gone. The stars are gone. Even your breath is gone. Only one thing remains: awareness. Still vast and quietly smiling. You wake with tears on your cheeks and a peace you can't explain. The days begin to shorten. Mornings arrive slower, laced with the hush of approaching autumn. The air has a new crispness to it, like the first cool sip of tea after the water settles. Leaves yellow at their tips. The bamboo hums a slightly different tune, still familiar, but lower deeper, like a bell rung at dusk instead of dawn. You and Tsukiko sit together more often now, without speaking. The silence feels fuller, somehow filled not with tension, but with mutual stillness. It's not the absence of conversation, it's the presence of something deeper. One afternoon, she asks to visit a nearby village, one across a slow-moving river at the edge of the valley. You haven't gone there in years. The path winds through low hills, and the bridges are narrow and worn. But you agree. You pack rice and boiled chestnuts wrapped in cloth. Tsukiko brings nothing but a thin shawl the color of mist. The walk is peaceful. You pass fields of millet and sesame, nodding at farmers who glance up from their work. You catch snatches of wind-carried song from children in distant yards. You begin to notice the space between sounds, how silence rides the rhythm of the world without interrupting it. As you near the river, the road narrows and dips toward a wooden footbridge. Tsukiko slows her pace and points to a fork in the path. "Let's take the old way," she says. You follow without question. This path leads through thick groves and overgrown shrubs. And eventually, you reach a place you've never seen before. A clearing where the river swells wide, still, and silent. But something about it feels unusual. The water is motionless, not calm, still. So still, in fact, that it mirrors the sky above so perfectly. You can't tell where reflection ends and air begins. The clouds, the sun, the birds, all suspended on its surface without ripple. You kneel beside it, expecting to hear some sound, water, lapping, leaves, falling, anything. But there is nothing. Only the sud exhale of your own breath. Tsukiko speaks softly beside you. This river once flowed like all others, loud, rushing, restless. But one year, the rain stopped. The earth cracked. The fish left. And the river stilled. You nod slowly. It looks frozen. She smiles. It isn't. It just learned to be whole without moving. You feel her words settle inside you. Then she adds, "Stillness doesn't mean absence. It means fullness. It means nothing is missing." You sit in silence for a long while. The wind stirs around you, but the water doesn't flinch. A single dragonfly hovers above the surface, then lands on a reed. Its wings click quietly, then fall silent too. You reach out and scoop a bit of water into your hand. It's cold, perfectly clear. When you let it go, it returns to its mirror state, unbothered. "I thought life was movement," you say. "It is," she replies. "But not all movement is motion. Sometimes it's becoming more of what already is." You stare at the water again and realize that the reflection isn't just showing the sky. It's showing your face and something else behind it, something wide, calm, infinite. You think of a story the blind teacher once told you back at the mountain hermitage. He spoke of a woman who traveled far to find enlightenment. She crossed seas, climbed peaks, begged from strangers. And when she finally reached the cave of a famous master, he gave her only one thing: a bowl of still water. "Look," he said. She looked, and in her reflection saw everything she had been searching for. Not outside her, not above her, through her. You finally understand. Tsukiko rises and walks to a nearby tree. She plucks a single red leaf and lets it drop into the still river. It floats for a moment, then begins to drift, not from wind, not from current, but from gravity and grace. She watches it go, then turns to you. Sometimes, she says, we are the river. Sometimes the leaf. But always, we are the space that holds both. The way home is quiet but rich. Every sound feels like a lesson. Now the flap of wings, the rustle of bamboo, even the crunch of gravel beneath your sandals. When you return to your home, you place a bowl of water beside the window. You let it reflect the moon each night. You don't touch it. You don't move it. You just watch. And one evening, while staring into its quiet surface, a question floats gently to the surface of your heart. Can your soul be like this river, still clear and full enough to reflect the sky? You don't answer. You just sit and let the stillness hold you. Evening falls like silk that's been warmed by the sun, smooth, weightless, tinged with the gold of the fading day. The lanterns are already lit, their paper bellies glowing from within like contented hearts. You sit on the porch, cup in hand, and watch as the light from your window mingles with the moonlight in the grove. Tsukiko joins you, holding something wrapped in cloth. She unwraps it carefully and places it between you. It's a small, round disc of polished bamboo, simple, smooth, warm to the touch. Its surface reflects just enough to catch your face, but not so much that you can see every detail. A mirror, you ask. She nods. But not to look at yourself, to see through yourself. You frown, turning it gently. What's the difference? She taps the center of the disc. This bamboo was grown in silence, cut with care, shaped without force. Its reflection doesn't flatter or judge. It simply shows what's underneath what you think is you. You lift it to your face. You don't see a perfect image, just a suggestion of one. The lines of your face blur at the edges. Your features seem both present and dissolving. It's like looking into the memory of a reflection rather than the reflection itself. Strangely, it soothes you. You set the mirror on your lap and exhale. It feels kind, you say. Tsukiko nods. Most mirrors reflect form. This one reflects presence. You pause. Presence. She turns to look at you directly. The part of you that doesn't speak, doesn't strive. The part that's always watching, always knowing, always still. the part that was there before you had a name. Her words ripple through you, like the breeze through leaves. You think of how often you've stared into metal or water, searching for something recognizable. A version of yourself you could pin down, describe, make solid. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the most honest mirrors are the ones that don't show you at all, but simply the space you hold. You remember a tale told by a quiet gardener who once worked at the village temple. He spoke of a hermit who spent 20 years polishing a stone until it reflected light like a mirror. When asked why, he said, "I wanted to remember that even dull things, if treated with devotion, can reflect the moon." You run your thumb gently along the surface of the bamboo mirror. It's not smooth in the way lacquered wood is. It holds a quiet texture, like breath captured in grain. It feels human. You look at Tsukiko. She's gazing up at the sky, her eyes reflecting stars before they've even fully appeared. What do you see when you look into it? You ask. She smiles not at you, but at the question. I see the part of me that doesn't change. The part that watched the first leaf fall. The part that will still be watching after the last one lands. You feel your throat tighten a little, not from sadness, but from the softness of truth. You think of your old tools, once sharp, now worn. Your old habits, once rigid, now softened. Even your thoughts, once loud, now slower, quieter, like geese flying low across a misted lake. What if we looked at each other this way, you wonder aloud? Not for faces, but for presence. Tsukiko turns to you. Then we'd stop seeing problems to fix and start seeing people to hold. The bamboo creaks gently in the evening breeze. A lantern flickers, and within the hush of that moment, a question blooms like tea in warm water. Are you the reflection, or the one reflecting? You don't answer. You don't need to. You let the question sit in the air, like incense curling into places words can't reach. Later, Tsukiko places the mirror on the small altar near the door. She lights a single candle beside it. Let it show you what doesn't change, she says. That night, you pass by the altar and glance at the bamboo mirror. It doesn't catch your full image, just a shimmer of your shoulder, a hint of light, and something behind it. Not a face, not a thought, just the soft outline of being. You go to sleep, holding that sensation in your heart, not like a treasure, but like a flame you've been carrying all along. And just before you drift off, you wonder quietly, if you looked deeply enough, could the whole world become your mirror? The next morning arrives in hushed tones, clouds drifting, low and soft, shading the sky like old parchment. The air holds the faint scent of sandalwood and something more subtle, like cooled tea. You wake slowly, your body taking its time, as if matching the unhurried mood of the sky. Tsukiko is already outside, bowing 3 times. Her movements are slow and deliberate, almost like a dance. Each bow a silent bell that rings without sound. She faces the grove, her palms pressed together, forehead gently meeting the earth. Then she rises, stands in stillness, and repeats. You watch from the doorway, unsure whether to step closer or remain still. She turns to you, her voice soft. Come. You obey, bare feet brushing the grass as you approach. She steps aside, gestures to the space beside her. Bow with me, she says. To what, you ask, half whispering. She looks out into the grove, to everything, and so you do. The first bow feels strange. Your knees crack. Your mind questions. What am I doing? It whispers, but Tsukiko's calm draws you back. You fold forward again. The second bow settles deeper. Your breath slows. You feel your forehead touch the earth, not as a sign of surrender, but of return. The third bow is different. It's not about doing anymore. It's about being. Afterward, you sit beside her on the low stone bench. A bird calls from high above. Bamboo leaves rustle gently overhead. 3 bows at dawn, she says, are not for the world. They're for the one who forgets they are the world. You nod, letting her words settle. You remember a saying from an old monastic gardener. When I bow, I drop myself. Not to become nothing, but to remember I never needed to be something. You look at your hands folded in your lap. How many things have they held? How many burdens? How many tools? How many names? And now they just rest, empty, full. Later that morning, villagers arrive. Not with questions or offerings this time, but simply to join. They've heard about the bows. One woman, her back bent with age, kneels beside you without a word. A young boy clumsily copies Tsukiko's form, toppling over as he giggles. A farmer you've known for years removes his hat and bows so slowly you can hear the grass respond beneath him. No one leads, no one speaks. It becomes a ritual, not in structure, but in presence. 3 bows, 1 for the self, 1 for the world, 1 for the space between. When everyone has finished, Tsukiko speaks to the group. In the bow, we lower ourselves, not to shrink, but to see the ground we stand on. Humility is not weakness. It's the strength to be soft. The villagers nod, and then like leaves scattered by the wind, they return to their lives. Later, as you and Tsukiko sip tea, she adds, a bow is also a bridge. Between you and another. Between here and now. You let the silence answer. That evening, while sweeping the porch, you remember the first time you bowed, not from reverence, but from apology. Years ago, when your temper had gotten the better of you, and words had flown sharper than any blade, you bowed then. say sorry. But now you see it differently. A bow is not always an apology. Sometimes it's simply acknowledgement. I see you. I see this moment. I see the breath moving between us. And so, as the sky dims and the fireflies wake, you turn toward the grove one last time that day and bow once, twice, 3 times, not out of obligation, but out of love. And somewhere in the wind, Tsukiko's voice reaches you like a breeze through tall grass. Can you bow to what you cannot control and still feel tall inside? You don't respond. You just let the question live in your breath. The sky is velvet tonight, dark and thick, freckled with stars, so vivid you could count their silences. The air carries a strange weight, not heavy, but definite. You feel it in your shoulders, in the soil, in the spaces between leaves. A stillness before change, a hush before knowing. Tsukiko stands near the garden, gazing up. Her face is turned toward the moon, but her eyes are distant, as if she's looking beyond it, into a place memory can't quite reach. You join her quietly, standing just close enough to share her breath. They're coming, she says softly. You don't ask who, you already know. She turns to you, her voice calm, but edged with something else, grace wrapped in finality. They'll arrive tomorrow. From the sky, you nod, though your chest tightens. You've heard this story before, told in fragments by elders near temple gates, whispered in festivals around bonfires. The moon girl, the glowing child destined to return to where she came from. Not born of this world, just a visitor. A lesson in human form, and now she would leave. You sit beside the fire, and Tsukiko kneels across from you. The flame dances between you, casting her features in shifting light. There's no sadness in returning, she says, only in forgetting the way home. You look at your hands. They've known her since they first lifted her from that bamboo stalk, glowing and small. They've offered rice, tended to cuts, held lanterns, folded blankets. What do they hold now? Will you come back? You ask. She tilts her head. I never truly arrived. I was already here, just as you are. Your throat tightens, but not with tears. With reverence, with awe. You think of an old story shared by a weaver who once traded cloth for stories. He spoke of a dream he had as a child, where he lived a lifetime under a cherry tree, grew old, said goodbye. Then he woke to find only a single night had passed, but something within him had changed forever. You wonder now, has this all been a dream? Or is life itself the dream? And Tsukiko, the moment we wake, she rises, placing a small bundle into your hands. Inside, a folded piece of cloth embroidered with tiny moons and a sliver of bamboo wrapped in thread. For remembering, she says, remembering what you ask. She smiles. Stillness, love. The shape of things before we name them. The next morning, the village feels different, expectant. The air is electric, though no storm comes. At midday, the sky shifts, not darker, not brighter, just other. A light appears, not blazing, not harsh, gentle, like the first snowflake that drifts before the storm, or the way dew settles before sunrise. The villagers step outside. They see it. They say nothing. They just know. Tsukiko walks to the clearing barefoot, her shawl trailing behind her like cloud thread. You follow, though each step feels like goodbye. Above, shapes descend. Not ships, not beings, but forms made of shimmering presence, like light wrapped in silence, like moonlight made whole. She stops, turns, and looks at each person gathered. You won't remember my name, she says, but you'll remember how still the world felt when I was near. She places a hand over her heart, and that stillness is not mine. It's yours. It always was. A boy steps forward and hands her a folded origami crane. She bows to him, then to you, then to the sky, and slowly, so slowly, she almost seems to dissolve rather than rise. She lifts from the ground. She doesn't fly, she returns. The light envelops her. And then it's gone. No sound, no wind, no trail of fire, just stillness. You stand there long after the others leave, long after the sun sets, long after the stars claim the sky again. You hold the bundle she gave you, pressed against your chest, and you breathe. There are no words, only a question that trembles now in your chest, like a reed in wind. Can you let go of what you love without losing what it gave you? You close your eyes, and for the first time since she came, you feel truly alone, but not empty, not abandoned, just quiet, like a moonlit grove after the last leaf falls. The village settles in the days that follow, not into sadness, but into a new kind of quiet. Not the hush of loss, but the breath that follows a profound moment. The pause after the final note of a song that still echoes through the heart. You wake each morning before the sun and sit at the edge of the grove, not waiting, not hoping, just sitting. The bamboo feels closer now, as if it leans in to support your spine. Your breath finds its rhythm again. Your hands rest easier. You don't look for Tsukiko, you listen for her. And sometimes, in the wind, in the space between birdsong and Bamboo Creek, you hear something, not words, but presence. The kind that has no shape, but holds everything. One morning, you rise and walk the old path alone. The blade you once carried now rests in the shed untouched. You pass it without thought. Your hands find a walking stick instead. Not for support, but for rhythm. Each tap against the earth reminds you you're still here. You pass a child collecting stones near the stream. He looks up and asks, "Are you the one who raised the moon girl?" You nod once. He stares a moment longer, then asks, "Did she teach you magic?" You smile. "No. She reminded me of something I already knew." The child seems satisfied and returns to his stones. Later that day, a group of villagers comes to your home. They've gathered reeds and bamboo, asking your guidance in building a meditation shelter. Not a temple, one says, just a place to sit. You agree. You show them how to bend the bamboo, how to listen for its grain, how not to force, but to follow. The structure rises slowly, each pole placed with care. There is no rush, no plans, only hands working in silence. Laughter surfaces naturally, not from jokes, but from shared breath. When it's done, they step back and bow. It's small, with no walls, just a roof and an open heart. Someone places a rock in the center, another a single flower. You place Tsukiko's bamboo mirror inside beneath the rafters. No one asks why. They simply sit. That evening, you return home. And for the first time in many moons, you light the small fire yourself. You brew tea and sit by the door, sipping slowly. There is no urgency in your body, no ache for answers, just warmth and space. You remember something Tsukiko said long ago when she placed the child's first drawing on your table. The world lives in gestures. You look around, the folded blanket near the hearth, the tea left cooling by the window, the sandals lined up outside the door. All gestures, all silent stories. You look down at your hands. They've stopped shaking. Not from age, not from strength, but from surrender. You've stopped fighting the current. You've begun to float. Later, you walk through the grove again. The moon is high, but gentle. The wind plays softly, brushing through the leaves, and you pause beside one familiar stalk of bamboo, the one you found her in. The hollow is still there. Not deep, not wide, just enough to remember. You place your hand on it. It's cool and smooth. And in your chest, a phrase rises like breath from warm tea. You stopped cutting and started tending. You sit cross-legged at its base and breathe. The night accepts you, not as a character in a story, not as a keeper of miracles, but simply as one who stayed. You lie back and look up. There are no lights in the sky tonight, no beings descending, no lessons offered, just stars and wind and the faint sound of your own heart beating quietly like a bell that no longer needs to ring to be heard. You close your eyes, and in the stillness, one last question floats through. What is left when the story ends? But your presence remains. You exhale, and the grove exhales with you. The bamboo grove is no longer a place you visit. It's a part of you now. You wake with its rhythm, walk with its breath. The days unfold, not in lists or demands, but in moments. Quiet, meals sweeping the floor, listening to birds argue in the trees, like old friends with nowhere else to be. Tsukiko is gone, but not absent. She lives now in the pauses between actions, in the choices you no longer rush, in the way you hold a teacup as if it were the moon. One morning, as light drips softly through the grove, you meet a traveler on the path. A young woman, robes dusty from the road, her sandals barely held together with twine. She bows, and you invite her to sit without a word. You boil water while she rests beneath the shade. "I've come far," she says, voice raspy but clear. Not for a shrine, not for a teaching, just peace. You nod, hand her tea. She sips slowly. Her eyes soften. After a while, she asks, "Is this the place where the moon child was found?" You don't answer right away. You look out into the grove where a breeze moves through the leaves like memory. "This is the place," you finally say. But more importantly, this is the place she left. The traveler frowns gently. Why more important? Because this, you say, tapping your chest lightly, is where she stayed. The woman closes her eyes and breathes, as if she understands something that words could never say. After she leaves, you wander into the grove alone. The bamboo leans with you. You run your fingers along a stalk and notice something unusual: new shoots. Dozens of them, thinner, greener, trembling in the breeze. The grove is growing, not rapidly, but gently, quietly, like a student remembering an old lesson by heart. You crouch beside one shoot, pressing your palm to the ground. The soil is cool, damp with morning. You feel its pulse. You've learned to notice these things now. You see the same pulse in your own body. Later in the village, a girl trips while carrying a basket. You bend to help, placing a hand on her shoulder before lifting a single fallen orange. She says, "Thank you," wide-eyed, as if she expected scolding. You smile and say, "We all drop things. The earth knows how to catch." She giggles and runs off. As you rise, a merchant nearby speaks. "Ever since she left, you've been different." You bow slightly. "Or maybe I've been returning." He laughs. "To what?" You consider. "To the person who was always underneath." That evening, as stars begin to freckle the sky, you sit on the porch with a small journal in hand. One Tsukiko once touched, but never wrote in. You open to the first page and begin not with a story, but a question. Can a grove grow inside a person? And if so, how do they walk without losing it? You let the question hang. You look at your garden, the stones Tsukiko arranged, still resting in their strange, perfect order. The bamboo mirror on your altar catches the starlight and doesn't reflect your face, but your breath, your presence. You write again. "I no longer seek silence. I am it. That night, you dream not of Tsukiko, but of yourself, walking through a forest that feels like your breath, sitting beside a stream that murmurs your name. You don't speak in the dream. You don't need to. The world knows you now, knows the rhythm of your steps, knows the stillness you've become. When you wake, the sky is the soft gray of early dawn. You walk the path without shoes. The grove welcomes you, not like a guest, but like its own. And you realize you are no longer the cutter of bamboo. You are the bamboo. You are the space between each stalk. You are the hush in the leaves. You are the gentle turning of the earth beneath its roots. You stand still in the center of the grove, arms at your side, breath slow, and you smile because you are home, because you always were. Evening again. The sky dims not with urgency, but with ceremony. The stars emerge one by one, not rushing, not competing, just arriving, like guests who need no introduction. You sit where the bamboo parts, gently in the grove. The same clearing where Tsukiko once showed you how to sit with the trees, not to learn, but to remember. The wind moves softly around you, as if brushing away the last layer of separation between you and the world. You breathe, not to calm yourself, not to meditate, just because breath is what you are now. From the shadows, a fox pads by pauses, looks at you, and keeps walking. Even the animals seem to sense it. You are no longer someone who disturbs. You are part of the landscape, a still shape in a moving world. You think of everything that has passed the bamboo, the blade, the fire, the lotus, the child, the questions, the bows, the partings, yet nothing has truly gone. It has only changed shape. The bamboo mirror remains on your altar, though you rarely need to look into it anymore. You carry its insight with you in the way you pour tea, in the way you listen, in the way your silence becomes a welcome mat for others to enter their own stillness. The villagers visit less now, but when they do, they don't come to ask questions. They come to sit. They sit on the wooden steps, in the grove, by the fire. They don't ask you for stories. They sit until they begin to remember their own. You've become the person who doesn't need to teach, because your presence already speaks what words cannot. You sweep your porch, not to keep it clean, but to leave space for wind. You sip tea, not to fill time, but to meet the moment. And when someone new arrives, lost or loud or lonely, you offer the only thing you truly own, your calm. That is your home now, the grove within. It stretches through your thoughts, winding like roots beneath your daily steps. Even in the village, even among clamor, you feel it. The grove has grown inside you, tall, breathing, full of space. It isn't an escape, it's a presence. It walks with you through marketplaces and dreams. You recall a final story, one not from a teacher, but from your own breath. A single stalk of bamboo, alone in a field, standing through storms. Each wind tries to bend it, break it. But the bamboo doesn't fight. It moves, it sways, it bows. And when the wind passes, the bamboo is still standing, not because it resisted, but because it knew how to yield. Without losing itself, you smile as you remember. You smile because you now understand stillness is not the absence of motion. It is the presence of peace within it. You rise slowly, not with reluctance, but with reverence, and you walk once more through the grove. Each stalk you pass greets you like a sibling. Each breath you take echoes the forest's quiet rhythm. You return to your door, bow slightly, not to the house, but to the moment, and step inside. The light is low. The fire is kind. You sit, you close your eyes, and from somewhere deep within, a final whisper arises, not in words, but in knowing. Stillness was never something you found. It was always what you are. Now the night grows deeper, and your breath grows slower, as if the world itself is sighing in relief. You lie beneath the stars, or maybe just the soft shadow of your ceiling. But the quiet around you is the same, the kind of quiet that holds you, not empties you. The story has finished, but its presence remains echoing softly through your chest, like a bell long after it has been rung. You feel it in your fingers, your shoulders, your face, every part of you gently letting go, releasing its grip on the day. You remember the bamboo grove, not as a place in the world, but as a feeling inside you. Tall, spacious, endlessly yielding. It breathes with you, now moving just slightly with every inhale, every exhale, never forcing, never holding. There's nothing you need to remember, nothing you need to solve, no thoughts you have to chase. Let them all float like paper lanterns on water, soft, slow, glowing, and free. You are not separate from the stillness. You are the stillness. And when your thoughts return, and they will find a gentler home inside you. So rest now. Let the world be small for a while. Let the night wrap around you like silk. Let your breath be the only rhythm you follow. You have already arrived. You are already enough. You are the moon in the mirror, the leaf on the stream, the bamboo that sways and returns. You are safe. You are home. Sleep gently, dear one. The grove